Hello, and thanks for joining me for another episode of Lights Out, your virtual campfire. I'm your hostess with the mostest ghosties, Sylvia Shults. You guys know I have a massive soft spot for abandoned haunted mental asylums, right? If you don't know that by now, what show have you been listening to? It's true. A haunted mental asylum is hands down my favorite of places to explore, even more than cemeteries. So when USPR invited me to come with them to Edinburgh Manor, I didn't have to think twice. I knew I was in for a treat. I wasn't disappointed, because after the investigation, I had a very personal experience with a spirit there. I'd love to share it with you, so come with me and let's go lights out. Edinburgh Manor in Scotch Grove, Iowa, has a long history dating back to the 1800s. The poor farm of Jones County, Iowa, housed the poor, the incurably insane, and the disabled from 1850 to 1910. Inmates worked on the farm in exchange for their room and board. During the poor farm years, there were over 80 documented deaths on the property. The poor farm closed down in 1910 and was demolished. Over the years 1910 to 1911, Edinburgh Manor was built. This institution was intended to house the poor, the elderly, the disabled, and the incurably insane. Edinburgh Manor was in operation until November 2010. When the building closed down, the residents were simply told they were going on a field trip and taken to their new homes. They would never return to Edinburgh Manor. This place is amazing. It's had visits from numerous paranormal investigating groups, from the Paranormal Files and Ghost Research Society to Ghost Adventures. And they go there because the manor is incredibly active. When the last 32 inmates left, everything was just left as it was. This provides a powerful draw for the spirits. There are several areas of the building that are more active than others. There's a small room at one end of the main floor, across from the children's room, where a man hung himself from the doorknob. Doors close by themselves, faces peer out of windows, and many investigators have been touched. More on that later. One of the best stories comes from room 200 in the men's ward. The owner's boyfriend decided to sleep there one night. Showing great forethought, he brought his dog with him. In the middle of the night, he woke up because something was grabbing his toe. At the same time, the dog started barking at something the human couldn't see. A particularly active apparition hangs out in the basement. Nicknamed the Joker, this entity has pulled visitors' hair and even pushed one investigator out of a chair. I was very lucky to be invited to Edinburgh Manor the first Saturday in December 2018. You guys know I rarely mention the date in these stories, but it is actually important this time for you to know that I was there in December. I got a message from a friend on Tuesday of that week asking if I wanted to tag along on an investigation that Saturday. Another team member couldn't go, so would I be willing to go on this investigation? They needed another person to chip in for gas and to be entertaining. Well, I was perfectly willing to do both. And I'd been wanting to go to Edinburgh Manor ever since watching that episode of the Paranormal Files. I got even more excited when I learned that we would have the opportunity, if we wanted to spend the night sleeping in the building. That was it for me. I grabbed my sleeping bag, my pillow, and my ghost hunting bag, and I was out the door as soon as Brian, Anthony, and Jackie from USPR pulled up in front of my house. As soon as we got to the manor, we met up with members of SIC, Supernatural Investigation Crew, including Aaron, Bill, Jessie, Johnny, Ashley, and Ainley. I was delighted to get to hang out with these great folks. I'd met some of them when SIC came to the Pollock Hospital, and the rest I met that night at the Manor. It's always so much better to go ghost hunting with trusted friends. I decided right away that I was going to sleep in the children's room, in the building, even though the building has no heat and no indoor plumbing. That'll be important later on. I picked the bed in the corner closest to the door for no other reason than because it was the one Peyton had sat on in the Paranormal Files episode. What can I say? I'm a raving fangirl. I laid out my sleeping bag and my pillow and propped my teddy bear up to keep watch. Don't judge. I realized that if I came back to that room at any point and I saw that my bear had moved, like it was headed off to play with the other bears in the room, I wouldn't know whether to be terrified or elated. We poked around the building by ourselves for a little while. Johnny and I went down to the basement to explore. At one point, we just felt like we were being watched. We quickly decided to rejoin the rest of the group. Ainley took us on a quick tour of the building, pointing out interesting spots along the way.
Did you mention the girl's name again?
I don't remember her name. Do you remember her name?
Susie.
Susie, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright.
So she was dropped off and then cared for here, even though
That
it was
the
for...
thought, yeah. And there wasn't really, like, it was primarily adults, but, I mean, this building was around since 1910. There wasn't always necessarily age restriction.
Okay. But it was always insane and geriatrics.
Insane, geriatric, and disabled.
Oh, okay.
There's
That
not
makes sense.
many disabled.
Not
there's
many.
No elevators.
No.
That makes
But,
sense. Thank you.
I mean, they did house some here.
Okay.
Susie's been known to, I guess, tug on your arm and things. Play with the ball and put all the toys in here.
Alright. Do we want to move on to the next room?
Let's do.
So real briefly, in this room, this is the room where a young man who was dropped off at the hospital, again, similar situation. His mother died, and his family just didn't want to care for him because he was too much work for them. So he was dropped off here, and even though like the building was unlocked and he could leave at any time, he only saw the way out through suicide. So he actually hung himself from the doorknob, and that was in the 1950s.
The door's still original, the knob's new. So it's still the same door.
So this is the rec room on the men's side. Is there a similar... The other side has the room with the table and the puzzle, right?
Yeah, so there's a couple of
Okay.
rooms that have puzzles in it.
Okay.
I know there's one up on the second floor. I want to say
Oh,
it was
maybe.
like, yeah, puzzle of a cardinal.
Okay.
And then actually one room that used to have puzzles doesn't have puzzles in it at this time.
Okay.
But I'll point that one out on the women's wing.
Okay.
So yeah, this is just a general rec room. There is a bit of a draft that comes through here. There's like a hole in the window over there. If anybody wants to shine a light on it, you can see it. Kind of, yeah. It almost looks like, I don't even know what kind of hole.
It's a bullet hole.
Yeah, I thought it was a bullet hole, but I didn't want to say that. Yeah, so a slight draft, so just be mindful of that. I don't think we have anything set up in here at this time, do we? Any equipment?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, and no cameras or anything along those lines.
Just down the hall.
Alright. So sounds good in here. Do you want to move upstairs or do you want to go across from the
Flash. Go first.
Okay. Alright. So staircase through this door.
Oh.
Yeah. Mindful of your
Oh,
steps.
that's cool. All right. I didn't.
Slams and it bangs very, very loud.
I did not even know there was a staircase here.
Yeah, there's a couple of them. Alright, so these actually used to be two separate rooms. Again, both men's rooms, but there used to be a wall in between them for separation. Apparently there's an entity in here that's often seen who's very big, masculine, dark. They don't necessarily think he's got any type of negative energy. They haven't had him do anything negative necessarily, but sometimes he can make people a little uncomfortable. They think that he has a complex that he needs to protect women. So they'll actually see him move from this area down the hall into the women's ward. to kind of watch over whoever's there. Apparently he can get a little aggressive with males that don't like ask permission to go in by the women, so heads up on that. If you're going over into the women's ward, it just might be a respectful thing to do and give a little whisper like, hey, the pool.
I'm sorry, where's the women's ward at again?
Straight across.
This way?
Yeah, so once we go past the staircase, that's considered the other ward,
Okay.
either direction. So west half is male, and then east half is the female.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome to your nightmare, John.
Yeah. The reason I said this was to tease Johnny. He had said right from the jump that he intended to sleep in room 200 for the night. He reconsidered this later for reasons I'll share with you further on in the episode. Keep that in mind as Ainley tells us this next bit of lore.
Is that your pillow with the cherries?
It is.
We'll be laying on that tonight.
Okay, so this is room 200. There's not much known about what is in here. However, the owner of the building, her boyfriend at the time was staying in here, and he was actually grabbed by something. Not a very aggressive grab, it was kind of like a soft, repetitive pinching of a toe. And their dog freaked out. He was growling, hair raised, and just a very unusual, aggressive behavior all pointed out towards the hallway. So while we don't necessarily know what's here, we do know that something has been felt here, which is more than just a sight. So it's kind of interesting. You'll be staying in this room, Johnny, tonight? Yeah.
Yep.
All right. There is a camera there as well that we do have
Flash.
set up. So. Okay. And then out in this hallway by this staircase, there's been lots of reports of an elderly woman in a white nightgown with long gray hair. They think her name might be like Rose Violet or something along those lines. They aren't 100% sure. But she's been spotted just standing on the staircase, taking a few steps up, or even staring out the window. I know the SIC team last year had someone who swore that they saw her in the window.
From the outside?
From the outside,
Okay.
yes. So she's someone to look out for. And then there are a couple of dolls in here. They're not cursed or anything, right? I didn't hear anything about that.
Yeah, well, they're missing two. They think someone stole them
Oh, lame.
last night.
Flash.
I was gonna be like, I'm out for tonight. I'll see you all back in Chicago.
Right?
More puzzles in here. The rumor has it that sometimes the puzzle pieces will follow you home without you even realizing it. So they'll end up in your pocket or your luggage, and that's just a little bit of Edinburgh going home with you. But the puzzle pieces have been known to move on their own. More pieces of the puzzle have been put in place. You can try and do some of the puzzle with the entity if you so choose.
Cool.
Has anybody ever thought of leaving out paper and crayons?
I'm not sure. I mean, can never hurt.
That's a good idea.
Is it true?
Who's staying in here tonight?
Brian and Anthony.
Okay, I thought it was going to be them.
These little bells.
And Johnny's sitting across the hall from them.
That's great. We guys have each other.
So we're now officially over into the women's wing of the second floor. Some of the names when we're still in the rooms, so it's kind of interesting to just look and try and get a peek into the patient's last days here. Because this area was still active up until 2010. When they officially closed down the building, they still had to transport 32 patients, which was a large amount for this hospital because it could house up to 40 at a time. So it was basically almost full. So in this room, there's supposedly two female spirits. The first one sits over in this chair right over here, and she's been known to just sit there and rock. She's got short, dark hair, younger woman, very troubled. Over here, we have a older woman, possibly elderly, who's just very agitated. She's not angry at anyone specifically, just very agitated and frustrated. Also, that large male dark figure that I mentioned from the other room has been known to come and just stand in this doorway, and that's some of his making people uncomfortable, but also his complex of protecting females.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this room apparently is pretty active.
Wonderful.
They call it the blue room, or the blue curtains. When we're in here in daylight, it's just a blue sheen all around. It's actually kind of pretty.
Yeah.
Okay, stupid question.
Flash. What's that?
Has anybody noticed that they can see their breath?
Yeah, it's cold.
Oh yeah, it's
Okay,
cold
so
enough.
That's what it is.
It's not climate controlled in here at all.
Yeah, we're 41 degrees in here, so that's...
Contract toilet paper too for the porta potty.
What I missed.
There's a bathroom, a bathhouse. Seriously? Yeah, there's heat.
Yeah, that's
Son of a
toilet
bitch.
paper.
Did you use the porta potty?
Yes!
Oh.
Nobody told me about the bathhouse.
I'll take you to the bathhouse
And the
after this.
toilet paper was wet and cold.
Oh my
God.
No, there was,
Oh, no.
there's a bathhouse.
I know that.
I didn't know that.
It was just when we first got here and I had to feel like a Russian racehorse.
It's right there.
Yeah, I know where it's at, but nobody told me there was a bathroom in there. Sorry,
It
we
may have
didn't
been
realize
better
that
to
first
use your
either.
hand versus
Yeah.
that toilet.
There's a shower in there too, but no hot water.
Not right now, at least.
Well, that's
Maybe
a
next time we
bitch.
come. I know.
They had
Yeah.
it last time.
So this in here is a casket, very
F a
clearly,
bunch
if you
of
want to
that.
come in.
And we're putting
They
Justin in the
brought it in
casket
as a trigger object. Apparently a spirit requested it.
Really? I
Yes.
thought somebody just brought it in for shits and giggles.
No, not at all. So they actually brought this in as a trigger object for a spirit.
Flash.
And then
Sorry.
people over the years have been adding to it. So now there's a raven and a lamp and there's candles and there's flowers. Yeah, so the inside of it is actually busted out. So please don't get inside of it. You'll hurt yourself. And that's not fun.
Well, we might put Justin in it.
We're not gonna probably put Justin
Yeah,
in it.
she's
What-
going in.
What if she hurts herself?
She won't hurt herself. It's just metal she's laying on.
I
That's
know,
all
but
it
then she's
is.
gonna get it dirty and then I would
It's the
feel
bottom of
bad.
it. We'll lift her up in it.
But yeah, it's a real functioning casket. All the bells and whistles there.
That was loud. Sorry. They got flashlights. Careful of the cord.
How far are you gonna go down?
As far as we can. We're almost there. I know, it feels like you're going through like the 7 layers of hell right now. Some of the helpless stuff.
We are in the basement.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's what I
Yes,
thought.
we are.
That's what I thought. Oh, because we're taking a tour of the whole building.
Yes.
Derp. It's more than a hair color, it's a handicap. What? Being blonde. What?
She just had like a total like.
Had a total dirt moment.
We've had a few of those today.
What makes you guys feel it? So, downstairs basement, very active area. The first entity that's been seen down here is a large male spirit. He's described as white, he's described as black, he's described as white and black at the same time. Never necessarily 100% the same each time. But they do say that it looks like he has a very large, dark beard that goes down to his belly. And they also say that he wears a leather jacket that almost kind of has like a chest piece over it, long, and he just stands and stares.
Oh, that's not creepy at all.
Oh yeah, right? Yeah, so he just stands and stares. He's been seen in this room by the owner's boyfriend again. This was the first time he'd ever seen a actual spirit like face to face, but he saw him and stared and made eye contact.
Wow.
But he's been seen down here a few times by a few different people. This is also the basement, so this is the area of the Joker as well. The Joker, they don't necessarily think is evil or malicious. He's just, and I quote Cindy. Thank you, Erin. I quote Cindy when I say this, she calls him ornery. So he likes to be a little bit pushy, a little aggressive, a little bit bully, but he's not necessarily attempting to harm you. He's just trying to mess with you. So this could include pushing somebody out of a chair or playing shadow games, things along those lines. I know you're not a fan of him.
Hold Aaron's hair. No, you hold me.
What, Erin has hair? Wait.
So we can go on here if you guys want to see like the boiler room area as well, and the laundry room. We do have a camera set up in here too.
Oh, now somebody's turned the lights off in there.
So this is the boiler room down here. Spirits that stay within this area One is in here because she's having a bit of breakdown, the other is trying to comfort her.
Oh.
So they stay together.
Oh. Yeah, that's so cool.
And then in here is kind of a maintenance man's area.
Flash. The what area now?
Maintenance man.
Ah.
Oh, yeah. This is where you and I were.
Yeah.
So in here, there's odds and ends for maintenance work. They say that this is the darkest room in the entire building, so if you were to turn off your lights, you wouldn't even be able to see your hand in front of your face. Now, they don't necessarily know what could be in here, but there has been a lot of success lately with EVPs in this room as well. I mean, from every room that she showed us, there was at least 1 or 2 out of every 3 to 4 where there's been some type of activity lately.
Wow.
It's, yeah, really incredible. So hopefully we'll get some pretty good results out of it tonight. I will ask that somebody turns on a light so that I can figure out how to get to the door from here now.
Yep. I just wanted to hang out in the dark for
Yeah,
just
I
a
know,
little
it's
bit.
incredible,
It's
right?
really dark.
It's like the darkest dark, I love it. And there are quite a few mirrors around here too, so don't be surprised if you put yourself on one at one point. I already have this.
I like to tell my readers, I sit in dark, spooky places so you don't have to.
Dark, spooky, and typically cold places.
Right.
This was their primary area for cooking. This was their kitchen. You can see they still have a full range in here. And on the door over there, there used to be a sign that said, "Please sign the door." So that was for any patients or staff that were officially leaving the hospital. They would sign the door as kind of like a remembrance. Now a lot of teams and individuals that visit do it. Apparently we are welcome to do so, but don't leave anything lewd or obnoxious. Otherwise she'll have to paint over the door, and she really doesn't want to. But this is a pretty cool area.
It'd be an awesome stove to have.
They say the vast majority of the furniture within the building and all of this equipment in here was just left behind when they packed up and moved to the next hospital.
Oh yeah, they just write it off.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
But
Kind of
that's a
unfortunate.
nice stove.
10 burn.
I know, think about what you could do with that. Holiday meal in no time flat. I know.
Money is right there.
I would have liked
It's
to
a
have that with
Vulcan.
Thanksgiving.
That's about a $20,000 stove right there.
No, that's
Yeah.
like the Cadillac of ovens, really. The Vulcan,
There's still dishes in the cabinet.
I know, it's incredible, right?
Oh.
Everything they just left.
8 years ago.
And it's not too long ago to think about. I mean, where were you 8 years ago?
Where were you?
Oh,
in middle school.
Yeah, I was in middle school.
You're a baby.
Wait, no, 8 years ago? No, I was like a freshman in high school.
You're still a baby.
I was like 14.
Flash.
Oh,
Back upstairs?
yeah, we can go back up now.
Stairway's behind us.
Is it behind us?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they've got a dump
Another way
waiter.
we could go. We could go up over there as well.
That's cool. Where does the dumbwaiter go up? Where's the
Get in, I'll
where's the,
pull
where's the
it.
door?
You know where the mirrors?
Get
Climb
in,
in.
find out.
Yeah.
I think it's where the mirrors are in the hallways, the skinny mirrors.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I bet you're
I
right.
think it's those.
Yeah. Okay, I'll buy that for $1.
Or get in and I'll pull you up and you can let us know where you end up.
I'll end up on the roof. It's cool up here. Bring me
Well, I'd have to give you my number or something so you could at least inform us. I'll pull you back down.
It's cold and wet out here. So would you really come rescue me if I was out in the cold?
I'd rescue you.
My tall guys.
Definitely.
Then it was time to start the investigation in earnest. One place I was particularly eager to visit was the Blue Room, where the 2 female spirits are known to stay. One of them, on the bed, is the agitated elderly lady. The other, who sits in the chair and rocks inconsolably, is the younger woman with short dark hair. I went there with Jackie, Brian, and Anthony, and we sat down to see if anyone would talk to us.
Would you like a periscope?
Hello, ladies. We've come to visit you. May I sit here in this chair next to you? These chairs are squeaky. That was not me farting. I promise.
We don't judge.
Actually, I encourage it. It's like,
Okay, December 1st, 2018, Edinburgh Manor. We are in the blue room. I'll go lights out. Actually, it is in this room that it is said that there are two women. One of them sits in the chair that I have just put an EMF meter on. She stays on that side of the room and she sits in a chair and rocks, poor dear, because she is distraught about something. And another female entity hangs over on the other side of the room. And she also is terribly upset about something. And we would simply like to know why. We're here to talk to you.
That's footsteps in the background from people.
Thank you.
Can you give us a sign that you're in this room? Close the door. Give us a good knock.
or better yet, touch that antenna for us. They'll let us know that you're here, and we'll be able to communicate.
Would you like to come and sit in your chair? I've left it open for you. You can sit down.
Don't be afraid of us.
My name's Sylvia, and I'm here with Jackie, and Brian, and Anthony. What's your name? I'd love to know whom I'm talking to. Can you tell me your name, please? I'm a very good listener, and I like to listen to people if they're having trouble. Can you tell me what your trouble is? Can you tell me, please, what's bothering you?
That's me.
You wore your squeaky shoes.
No, I actually didn't. These are new ones.
Oh, don't you start that.
Tag, Anthony.
I put this gadget on your chair, but you can still sit here if you want. It's not going to be in your way. You can come sit on your chair if you want to. It makes you feel better. Do you know what year it is? If I say the year, can you finish it for me, please? The year is 19... Can you count to 5 with me? 1, 2, 3. Boy, the sound of that wind just goes right down your spine, doesn't it?
My grandmother-in-law's voice.
That's not a very nice bride.
No.
That's still the wind. Whew. It almost sounded like a moan, but I know it's just the wind. So you're going to have to compete with the wind to make some noise. Can you make a noise for us? You knock on the door for us, please? We've come all this way to visit you. We'd love to know that you're here. I'm sitting here on your bed, and I'm trying to think what it was like for you to be here. Can you tell me? I come from a place called the Peoria State Hospital in Illinois, just next door. And our patients were treated like family. Were you treated well here? Did you feel like this was your home?
Pretty quiet in
Uh-huh.
It is, dear.
I don't even get any creepy feelings around here.
No,
Yeah, that's the thing with Brian and I was talking about that downstairs, like, we definitely feel like we're being watched,
that's what John and I felt
but we
downstairs.
don't feel like anything else is
Mm-mm.
gonna,
No. I don't feel anything in here at all. Granted, I'm not sensitive, but I'm not feeling that darn thing in
But usually you get like a little bit of a feeling.
here. Yeah.
like, my feeling that I have is always in the distance.
Okay.
Like, I never feel like anything's like here.
Okay.
there. It's always a deal,
Like, if we're on this end, it would be on that end, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If we're on that end, it would be on this end.
so definitely we're being
All
watched.
the exciting stuff is happening somewhere else. Back at Command Central, something quite interesting was happening on the cameras. We had 8 DVR cameras set up, capturing the views of 8 different parts of the building. At about 10 p.m., Camera 1 saw something really cool. It was set up to watch the children's room, where a few of us, including myself, would be sleeping that night. Bill called me over to look at the feed. "Watch up there by the pillar," he said. I saw several dust motes floating gently on the screen. Then a tiny white dot swooped slowly from the pillar up to the ceiling. Then it disappeared. It didn't float down like the dust motes did, but moved languidly upward, just a friendly blinking wink of white light. I decided right then that I didn't care what my teddy bear was getting up to with the other toys. I'd be perfectly comfortable sleeping in that room. We had another interesting camera encounter a little later. Several of us were watching camera 8, which was covering the bed in room 200, where Johnny was planning on sleeping. Johnny and Aaron were talking about sleeping with socks on, a very good idea, as it was getting steadily colder in the building. As their conversation turned to feet, a bright orb came up from the floor to the top of the bedstead, then dropped gracefully back down to the floor, almost as if it were pointing out the foot of the bed. Room 200, you'll remember, was the room in which the owner's boyfriend had his foot grabbed. Later on in the evening, several of us went down into the boiler room, the stomping grounds of the Joker. I feel like someone is staring a hole right through my back. I don't like that at all.
So like behind you?
Yes. If you're gonna shove me, just do it. Please. Don't keep teasing. I know somebody's down here. Let us know.
Yeah, you're not very scary right now.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea, Bill. Yeah. I'm not scary, I just want communication.
Right, I'm not after being scared. I just want to know that you're here. I feel like you're staring at me. And I don't like being stared at. If you'd like to talk with us, that's fine.
Why are you here?
I no longer feel like somebody's hovering around me waiting to shove me.
I do feel a breeze, man. That's why we're getting cold.
I don't feel a stare boring into my back anymore, which is comforting because that was really uncomfortable.
It's really getting darker, I feel.
Yeah, I think so. Our eyes should be getting used to the darkness. But instead the shadows are getting blacker.
This is how dark it is in here right now.
Okay, I can't believe I'm about to do this, but I'm going to. Joker, do you know what a high five is? It's when a person holds their hands out and you slap their hand and say high five. I'm going to hold my hand out. And if you want to, you can hit my hand and say high five.
I'm a big fan of high fives, so I hope you do this.
Hold on, Joker, I'm going to take my hand back for a second. I'm going to give you some energy. What I've got here is a little flashlight, and I'm going to wind it up. And you can take some energy from that. Hold on, the radio's on too. There we go. You can take energy from that. Take energy from the flashlight and give me a high five.
Well, I do have a spirit box in my pocket if you guys want to try it out.
I thought you were just happy to see me. I couldn't let that go past.
Just a combination of both.
A little from column A, a little from column B.
Go for it.
Yeah, whip it out.
I will.
You've been hanging out
I
with us
just need to make sure everyone's ready.
I mean, it's a little cold down here, we get it. Do you want some help with that? You got it there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not squeaking.
Hello? I can really hear you.
That's not obnoxiously loud either. Hello, can you talk to us?
And if you would prefer, we can get one of those obnoxiously loud speakers.
Let's not and pretend we did. Are you down here with us? Can you tell us your name?
Bill, your stomach's killing our spirit box session.
Do you have any food down here?
Are you hungry? Because I have like so many snacks upstairs. I have trail mix, and I have fishy kisses, and I have pretzels, and I have like corn nuts, and all kinds of stuff.
I have bugles and popcorn and peanut bars.
I had no idea this much food existed amongst us.
You just
Yeah.
gotta ask.
Always gotta have munchies on a ghost hunt.
What's your favorite kind of food? We're really close to the kitchen. What did you like to eat?
Bill,
Bill, come on, man.
Why are you here? Did you work here? Or were you a patient? Did they tell you why you were here?
Can you say hello?
that's Bill sitting over there. Can you say Bill?
Oh, thanks.
It's an easy name to say.
I hear it a lot.
It comes through all the time on receptions.
That's why.
Really?
That's why I'm
Yes,
airing now.
it's really yeah.
I honestly didn't know. Well, how about it? Can you say Bill for us?
Looks like Bill's getting a little tired. He's yawning. Are you tired from yesterday? There's a lot of guests.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
I did. Sounded like a hiccup or something.
I heard like a footstep.
I thought it sounded like somebody banging on a pipe.
Yeah, like a drip.
Yeah, it sounded like a fight.
Was that you? And the oft-repeated phrase, can you do that again? Please. I can only freeze down here so much longer.
Yeah, we're gonna leave soon.
Anything you want to tell us? Anything we should know?
I don't feel anything down here right now.
No.
Want to call it?
Yeah.
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 Cool.
We spent about half an hour down there. 10 minutes or so after we came back up, the camera that was watching the boiler room captured motion. A wee mousie exploring the floor for any crumbs we might have left behind. We decided to call it a night around 3:30 in the morning. Most of the women decided to sleep in the nice warm bunkhouse. You know, where the bathrooms were. Not me. I had told myself I was going to sleep in the building, and that's what I intended to do. So Johnny, Aaron, Bill, and I all went down the hall to the children's room. Aaron looked back down the hallway right before he closed the door, and he said he saw a dark figure cross the hall. But we were all definitely ready for bed at that point, so we did not go chasing the figure. But wait, I hear you cry. I thought Johnny was going to sleep in room 200 and have his foot grabbed. Well, dear listeners, that had been the plan. But around 11 o'clock, Brian and Anthony had gone to bed in the room across the hall from room 200. By 3:30 in the morning, when we went to bed, they were sawing logs. Johnny realized that he was not likely to get much rest with that noise going on, so he decided to crash in the children's room with the rest of us. I took my shoes off. I decided to just sleep in my clothes for warmth, put my earplugs in, and snuggled down into my sleeping bag. I wanted to get to sleep as quickly as possible because I was near a window. My bedroom at home is quite dark, so I knew the light would wake me up earlier than I really wanted to be conscious. I wanted to sleep while I could. Unfortunately, it was not to be. You know how in a room full of people, the person that snores the loudest always falls asleep first? That night, that person was Bill. And Bill snores like a Harley. I could hear him even through the earplugs. Plus, I wasn't cold, not really, but I was shivering uncontrollably. So there I was, lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, shivering, listening to Bill snore, when something brushed up against my butt. It's not like I got grabbed or anything. It was more like if someone was walking past my bed and brushed up against my tushy with their knee as they went past. Nonetheless, it got my attention. I'm afraid I was less than gracious at that point, because I snapped grumpily, "Please don't!" About half an hour after that, I still wasn't asleep. And even though I kept telling myself that I didn't have to pee, I realized that yes, I did indeed have to answer the call of nature. I heaved a huge sigh, took out my earplugs, swung my feet over, and slipped my shoes on, and looked around the room. To my delight and relief, Johnny, in the bed next to mine, was still awake, watching a boxing match on his phone. I said, "Oh, good, you're still up. Look, I hate to ask, but would you mind walking with me to the bunkhouse? I just really don't dig the idea of walking through the dark hallways by myself." Johnny, thank heavens, said sure. He put his phone down and reached for his shoes, then stopped and looked at me. "Have you been awake this whole time?" I nodded to the other side of the room. "With Bill snoring like that? Yes. Yes, I've been awake and conscious since we came in here." Okay. "Because a little while ago you said, 'Please don't,' and I couldn't tell if you were talking in your sleep or what. I tried to get your attention, but you didn't answer." I laughed. Then I told him about whatever had brushed up against my behind. I apologized for not answering him and explained about the earplugs. We got our business attended to in the bunkhouse, then came back to bed. This time I kept my fleece on, and I was much more comfortable. I even got a couple hours of sound sleep before it got too light, and everyone started moving around. And the ghosts left my butt alone for the rest of the night. Would I go back to Edinburgh Manor? In a heartbeat. I wanted to go see how the atmosphere there compared to the Peoria State Hospital, of course. The manor is a beautiful building, not as big as a Kirkbride, but maybe as big or a little bigger than one of the cottages at the Peoria State Hospital. It was a real treat for me to visit Edinburgh Manor. Everything was just as the patients had left it less than a decade ago. I never got to explore the buildings of the Peoria State Hospital in such a close time frame. I'm close to the spirits there now because I've been there so often. But seeing an asylum with all of the beds still there, with blankets and pillows on the beds, papers lying around, handmade signs on the doors with patients' names, it really gives Edinburgh Manor a sense of personality, something you just no longer get at the Peoria State Hospital. I would love to explore the grounds in better weather. When we went, it was raining and very cold. In fact, it was snowing when we left on Sunday morning. Plus, there's a pioneer cemetery right across the road from the manor that I would love to explore. There's a fascinating postscript to my visit to Edinburgh Manor. About 3 weeks after coming home from the manor, I went in for my monthly massage. As my therapist worked on me, I told him all about my experiences at the asylum, including sleeping in the bed of a child who had possibly suffered from some sort of disability. "It's interesting you should say that," Doug said. "You've got some tightness in your spine between your shoulder blades, which isn't unusual for you. What is unusual is that you've got some separation in your vertebrae lower down on your back. This kid whose bed you slept in, did they have back problems? Spina bifida, scoliosis, something like that?" I said I had no idea, but we both agreed that it might be possible to pick up on some physical ailment at a haunted location. We've seen that plenty of times, like when people get short of breath or have a tightness in their chest at Waverly Hills or the Pollock Hospital, both tuberculosis wards. If you do something on an investigation that's even more personal and intimate, sleeping in someone's bed, might a spirit try to make contact with you by sharing their affliction with you in some physical way? My massage therapist was able to coax my vertebrae back to their accustomed spot during that visit, but it was interesting that he noticed a change in my spine that was pronounced enough for him to comment on. Thanks so much for joining me for this episode. I'd like to thank the members of SIC for welcoming me with open arms when I got to the manor. And special thanks to Johnny for being my middle-of-the-night chaperone. Big thanks to Brian, Anthony, and Jackie of USPR for letting me tag along in the first place. You guys gave me a great opportunity, and I appreciate it. And thanks to Liz for suggesting me to USPR. In the next episode, we'll return to the basement of the Pollock Hospital for another conversation with Chris. Join me for another visit with the boy in the basement the next time we go Lights Out.